God for all of you. Can you stand back up, please? Barack Obama's birthday. I figured you want to sing happy birthday. Now sit down. All right. I got a long list of things I can't do. I think I can still mention Obama's name. Maybe I'll just call him Milhouse. Maybe I'll just call liberals buffoonish. I'll have this code between us. No, we won't. All right, I have some serious things I want to talk about here because these are extremely serious times, and thank God for you folks. Well, I'm going to do a little bit of history and philosophy. We'll get into a little bit of current information, but I have a limited amount of time. But I think it's important to remind ourselves of a few things on whose shoulders you stand and why you're such great patriots. Abraham Lincoln said that the greatest danger we face is from within. Ronald Reagan said that liberty is never more than one generation away from extinction. That danger has arrived. It has arrived in the midst of our generation, and the danger is in fact from within. Now, what is this danger? It's the same tyranny that has hounded man from the earliest days. It is the use of power by a relative few to dehumanize the individual and delegitimate his nature. And this tyranny comes disguised as a desirable, workable, utopian governing ideology. It is proclaimed as new, progressive, modern, full of grand social plans and experiments, all of which in small ways and large leads to the individual's subjugation. Now, you're familiar with its various and deceptive nomenclatures: social justice, economic equality, and so forth. The people must come to despise their own society and those who've contributed to its success. Pull the plug on that damn clock. I don't care about that. It is an appeal to malcontents. And to the extent there aren't enough malcontents to appeal to, they must create them through indoctrination, government subsidies, and outright coercion. Remarkably, the President of the United States is one of the malcontents. By his own words, he seeks to fundamentally transform the country we love. He seeks to remake America, and the political conditions for his rise to power and his exercise of power were developed over the last 100 years. More on that later. We live in a post-constitutional America, where the Constitution is, in so many critical respects, a dead letter. If it isn't flat out ignored, its words are twisted and deformed, the purpose of which is to empower a relative handful of political and appointed masterminds and their army of bureaucrats in contravention of the Constitution's matrix of limitations, the centralized, concentrated governmental power. The reason for this is obvious. It's not possible to live simultaneously in a functioning constitutional republic and a statist regime. Therefore, the unraveling of the Constitution has been the applied focus of the statists since their embrace of European progressivism and Fabian socialism some 100 years ago. You need not take my word for it. In 1908, before he became president, Woodrow Wilson attacked the foundational purpose of America's existence, which the Constitution was intended to preserve. He also dismissed the Declaration of Independence when he declared, quote, "No doubt a great deal of nonsense has been talked about the inalienable rights of the individual, and a great deal that was mere vague sentiment and pleasing speculation has been put forward as fundamental principle," unquote. Wilson went on to proclaim, "Government is a part of life, and with life it must change alike in its objects and its practices. Only this principle must remain unaltered," he said, "the principle of liberty, that there must be the freest right and opportunity of adjustment. Political liberty consists in the best practicable adjustment between the power of the government and the privilege of the individual." Wilson went on to condemn federalism, the notion of state sovereignty. He also insisted that there could be no practical defined limits on the federal branches of government, for they have to be free to respond to modernity, promote the greater good, level the playing field, etc. So liberty becomes a privilege. There are no individual unalienable rights. Government must grow in power and scope. Wilson said, "The president is at liberty, both in law and conscience. Be as big a man as he can. His capacity will set the limit for the office." He said the courts are to determine the adequacy of the Constitution in respect to the needs and interests of the nation. Our conscience, he said, in matters of law and our opportunity in matters of politics are in their hands. He called this constitutional adaptation. I call it bullcrap. How's that for being an election? Now, Wilson is only one among many. During his presidency, and especially as presidential candidate of the Progressive Party, Theodore Roosevelt was of like mind. There were only a few exceptions, frankly. Every president has, to one degree or another, taken an oath to uphold the Constitution. They have no intention of upholding it. Let me put it this way. Is there anything the federal government cannot regulate if it chooses to? The Supreme Court just ruled that it can even regulate our physical and mental well-being by dictating our health care coverage. It doesn't get more authoritarian than that. I've said before, I said here last year, so distant is America today from its founding principles that it's difficult to precisely describe the nature of the American government. It's not strictly a constitutional republic, because the Constitution has been and continues to be easily altered by a judicial oligarchy that mostly enforces, if not expands, the status of gender. It's not strictly a representative republic, because so many edicts are produced by a maze of administrative departments that are unknown to the public and detached from its sentiment. And it's not strictly a federal republic, because the states that gave the federal government life now live in its behest. So what is it? It's a post-constitutional government in an increasingly authoritarian society, with a circle of liberty that surrounds each and every one of you is getting smaller and smaller. 100 years of constitutional degradation brought us to this perilous point, providing an opportunity for a president like Barack Obama to impose his will on this nation. As I said, it's his birthday today. But then again, so what? It's also Saturday. No offense. The fact is, inside the Oval Office who has had more contempt for the country he leads than the people he represents. And this Obama said he seeks to fundamentally transform America.
That's right.
That's obvious. Well, if you want to fundamentally transform America, that means you don't love it, you don't appreciate it, and you don't respect it. Otherwise, why fundamentally transform it? Furthermore, Mr. President, you don't have the constitutional authority to fundamentally transform it. But this helps explain why Obama fancies the governing system in Red China, which he's alluded to in the past. Of course, it's the president's job first and foremost to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, not to evade it and abuse it. Yet Obama speaks often of his intent to act unilaterally by executive fiat, should Congress not bow to his demands. So much for separation of powers. And Obama has made clear that he will ignore, rewrite, or institute his own laws as he sees fit. So Obama refuses to enforce federal immigration laws while preventing the states from upholding them. He refuses to defend the Defense of Marriage Act despite the fact it was passed by Congress and signed by Bill Clinton. He violated the Constitution's Appointments Clause by declaring Congress in recess when it was not, and appointing 3 individuals to the National Labor Relations Board and 1 individual to the position of Director of Consumer Financial Protection. He violated the First Amendment's Religious Liberty Clause with the issuance of a regulation compelling religious institutions to purchase policies that cover free contraceptives. He asserted executive privilege without a legitimate constitutional basis to conceal documents involving the Fast and Furious scandal, as well as Eric Holder's false testimony before Congress. And the list goes on, but my time is short. He promises to do a lot more. Moreover, Obama's contempt for free enterprise cannot be overstated. Never before has a president embraced so tightly the class warfare propaganda, and let's call it what it is, of the Marxist socialist left. Whether he seeks to redistribute resources from the suburbs to the cities, as one author writes, whether he seeks to redistribute resources from the United States to the Third World, as another author writes, the fact is, Obama intends to spread the wealth, as he told Joe the plumber, and has and will continue to use the power of the government to do just that. And in so doing, Obama continues to pound away at successful individuals, as he must. And as he said in 2008, our individual salvation depends on collective salvation.
Wow.
As we all know, by the way, capitalism not only creates wealth, it spreads wealth too, but through voluntary interactions and arrangements. Last month, Obama talked about the money you earn this way. So the money we're spending on these tax cuts for the wealthy is a major driver of our deficit, a major contributor of our deficit, costing us $1 trillion over the next decade. So we can't afford to keep that up right now, so I'm not proposing anything radical here, unquote. Since when does the money you earn, the fruits of your labor, belong to the government? Never. Money you need few weeks ago, Obama infamously, I guess I should say, said, if you've been successful, you can fill it up, can't you? That'll go down in history, boy, I'll tell you what. Hopefully a footnote to a footnote to a footnote in history. Obama infamously said, if you've been successful, you didn't get there on your own. I'm always struck by people who think, well, it must be because I was just so smart. There are a lot of smart people out there, he said. It must be because I worked harder than everybody else. Well, let me tell you something. There's a whole bunch of people working hard out there. Apparently not enough, I might add. Now, this is another assault on independent, self-reliant individuals. Obama finds the entire capitalist pursuit and the wealth it creates unworthy, if not immoral. He said, quote, we can't drive our SUVs and eat as much as we want and keep our homes at 72 degrees at all times, and then just expect that other countries are going to say, okay? Who gives a damn what other countries? The permission of other countries, or for that matter, the President of the United States to live as we choose. And if I want it to be 72 degrees in my home, by damn, it's going to be 72 degrees in my home. Now, it's worth retelling that before Obama was elected to any federal office, to the Senate for about 14 days before he became president, he surrounded himself with a network of like-minded malcontents and radicals who influenced his life's view. We're not allowed to talk about this, I think. The media and the Republican nominee said it's off the table. Nothing's off the table. And this circle of malcontents include well-known communist Frank Marshall Davis, who wrote in 1947, quote, I admire Russia, distant memory. I admire Russia for wiping out an economic system which permitted a handful of rich to exploit and beat gold from the millions of plain people. 1947, I think Stalin was still around back then, as a matter of fact. Bill Ayers, co-founder of the Weather Underground, in 1969, a self-described communist revolutionary, he concluded or participated in a campaign of bombing or attempting to bomb public buildings, including police stations, the U.S. Capitol building, and the Pentagon. Anybody have any friends like that around here? Rashid Khalidi, a one-time mouthpiece for the PLO. Anybody have any friends like that around here? Jeremiah Wright. Give me the answer before I ask the question. Obama. You can't do that every time I Reformation means that masses of our people will have reached the point of disillusionment with past ways and values. They don't know what will work, but they do know that the prevailing system is self-defeating, frustrating, and hopeless. They won't act for change, but won't strongly oppose those who do. He said the time is right for revolution. I say the time is right to reinstate the American Revolution. As president, Obama appointed a number of radical leftists to his staff. They included Anita Dunn, who cited Mao Zedong as one of her favorite political philosophers. Van Jones, who was involved in a group called, not his birthday, involved in a group called Storm, standing together to organize a revolutionary movement, and a supporter of Muhammad Abu Jamal, a cop killer. Carol Browner, who belonged to the Commission for a Sustainable World Society, part of the Socialist International, and many others. And I'm controversial for reading their resumes. That's who these people are. These people have done terrible damage to our country. The Obama administration has driven up our debt by over $5 trillion in 4 years, more than the first 41 presidents combined. The debt now exceeds 100% of the gross domestic product. They have contributed to the greatest loss of wealth since the Great Depression, with Americans losing 40% of their wealth since 2007. The real unemployment rate, or U6, is stuck at over 14%. Almost 8 million people have dropped out of the workforce since Obama became president. 46.4 million people are on food stamps, with spending on the program up 100% under Obama. The ranks of America's poor on track to climb to levels unseen in nearly half a century. How's that for utopia? Yeah. Meanwhile, the welfare state is growing and collapsing at the same time as the day of reckoning nears. Social Security's unfunded liability is $20.5 trillion, and there's not a single proposal on the table from the White House to address it. The trustees estimate it's going to go broke by 2033. Medicare's unfunded liability is $38.6 trillion. The trustees estimate it will go broke in 2024. What the hell are our kids going to do? Somebody has to pay for this. And there's no point in candy coating this. But let me add this, as I come to a conclusion here. We must take heart. We must take heart from and learn the lessons of this nation's history. America's founding, the Civil War, World War II. They were epic, and at times seemingly insurmountable wars of liberty against tyranny. The challenge today is in many ways much more complicated, because the danger is from within and uses the nation's instrumentalities against itself. No society is guaranteed perpetual existence. But I don't believe that this generation of Americans will condemn our children and our grandchildren and future generations yet born to centuries of misery and darkness. We'll look out at you in this audience. I see several thousand patriots. Members of Americans for Prosperity, Tea Party activists, from every corner of this wonderful country. You're in the vanguard. You're the commanders. You're the Paul and Paulette Reveres. We're working hard to rouse the rest of our fellow citizens, for the dire, perilous times that we face. And it is left to you. You are our great leaders. You are our great heroes, to make sure that we are victorious. We have no choice. There's nowhere else to go. This is our country, and we want it back. God bless you.